Does anybody have any changes to the agenda? No. Then if we could please rise to the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Privilege of the floor. We don't have anybody other than Noah, who was already scheduled to speak, so we'll move on to the minutes from the December 8th meeting. Does anybody have any changes to those?
Is you want to correct Jerry Nichols' name?
Nichols.
G. Jerry.
Gerald. G.
Gerald?
It should
Yeah.
be J. It's Gerald.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wasn't sure. Didn't know.
Yeah.
A motion to approve?
Okay, we're okay? Yes, could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the December 8th meeting? Motion made by Jim, seconded by Bernie. All in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? No. Jeff, treasurer's report.
Oh, thank you, Keith. Good to see everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So we have the reports through December. So July through December, that's the 6-month mark, halfway through the fiscal year. And staying on course. For the month of December, the library charges were a little light, but I think it's because we had 4 holidays and 1 snow day. But year to date, we're still a little bit over our, budgeted amount of 10,000 through year to date and 20 for the year. So that's on track. The salary line kind of straightened itself out in December after November had been over for a few reasons that everyone's aware of. December was almost 3,000 under budget. So now year to date we're almost 4,000 under budget. And I believe the first paycheck in January was pretty significantly under budget as well. So it looks like for the whole year we'll probably be right on target for the salary and wages line, or slightly under, give or take a few dollars, but we're that's back on track where it needs to be. You can see we paid the retirement bill in December. It's due in February, but if we pay in December, we get like a $600 or $700 break, and that was under budget as we had discussed. So that was paid and done for the year. So our cash went down by that amount, but that's done for the year. And books, I'm going to try and catch up on. I think I'm almost entered to the end of October. This week I'm going to work on November and December. Just because December was such a crazy month, I fell a little behind on some of the Baker and Taylor invoices. But again, we could just assume that the books are on budget when all are entered. Nothing else really stands out. You can see the answer. We're right on target year to date. And nothing else at all. The total spending, 709, almost 710 compared to 724 on the budget, so 14,000 under, and that's for the salary line being under, and the retirement bill being pretty far under too. So more or less, we're right on track at the halfway point. We have $666,000 total cash, and I think that's about it. Nothing else really stands out. We might have to move some money from the key checking account to the Orange County Trust because it's a little bit out of balance there. I don't think the rate is going to make a difference one way or another, but we'll look into that to see if we can get any kind of a better rate. But we'll probably shift some around now that we got that second tax check last month. But more or less, that's where we're at.
Okay.
The professional services line, we're over there by about 6,000. Is that connected to the architect?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Do we need to do an adjustment on that, for that line at some point, or? How are we gonna handle that?
Yeah, we probably will have to. That's a great point, Jim, because I don't think we had enough in there for the full year to account for all his invoices. I even have one here right now. It looks like we've paid him, a pretty good amount, so we might have to make a journal entry adjustment for that
Okay.
during the year.
Anybody else have any questions, Jack? No.
No, this is a board meeting.
Yeah. Well, can I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report? Motion made by Norma, seconded by Jim, all in favor? Aye, any opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Jack.
He's gonna stick around.
I'm just sticking around.
Okay,
Thank you.
Noah,
Yes.
we have you on the agenda. It's great that you've been able to join us, especially with this inclement weather. And, as we've had some limited discussion, we're trying to find out what needs to be done, depending on which route we take. And, it's knowing that you've been working with Moffett and, when they're, what they're going through they're, doing a renovation, not a new building, but, I thought it'd be opportune to get you in here to let us know why we would need you. And, I think there's some questions that people have. I'm hoping you can answer.
Sure.
So,
Here's my cards for everybody. How would you sit here? What do you want me to? How do you want me to address the board here, or stand?
Down there, you can,
That's
see.
probably better, you could.
All right. So I have some things also that I guess I'd just like to be able to. I guess printouts and stuff that I'll probably reference as well. But just a quick introduction. I'm a partner at the firm Unistat. We're on Long Island. As far away as that sounds, it's not as far away as everybody thinks it is. But we we're a municipal advisory service. Okay, so when municipalities borrow school districts, villages, towns, counties, fire districts, they use a municipal advisor. It's basically two parties in the transaction, yeah? There's a financial advisor, and then there's your legal counsel. And so we've been fortunate enough to deal with more municipalities in the county than any other advisory service. So we do the town of Goshen and the village of Goshen, and Goshen, we're working on refinancing the bonds for a Goshen Fire Department right now, and as well as town of Monroe and village of Monroe and Woodbury and Cornwall and on and on and on. So, and some of them are active, as you know. Some of them borrow a lot of money, and some of them are just not very active at all. And so, but in effect, when I get into what we do specifically for libraries, but for municipalities, they borrow money and they pay it back, right? And so other than fire districts and school districts and libraries, they're not really subject to vote. So they call us up when they need money, and then we kind of walk them through that process. So and everything is dictated. The way bonds are structured is all dictated by local finance law. So we work, with the attorneys, to structure bonds, and it's pretty simple. I mean, bonds and loans are the exact same thing, right? You borrow money and you pay it back. It's that simple. And so we help with the marketing, structuring, distribution, sale of the bonds, and everything is done on a competitive basis. The library actually has an option of doing it on a negotiated or competitive basis, but we'll get that into a second. But and then once we decide the amount to borrow, then we prepare what we call an official statement or prospectus so this is and this is written now. These are the things if you have mutual funds and you get them in the mail and you throw them out, and so that this is what we write on behalf of, and this is an offering document so that an investor can read through this and say, oh, okay, now I know what I'm buying. And it's pretty simple. We advise on over $1 billion a year. It might sound like a lot, but we're just a machine. I mean, it really, it's you know, municipal bonds kind of sell themselves, and I don't want to minimize what I do, but it's it's over 100 transactions a year, and it's just a small little firm. And it's all over the state. I mean, a lot of the stuff is on Long Island. That's where we're based out of. We do, like I said, a lot in Orange, but City of Plattsburgh, City of Kingston, Clinton County. I mean, all over the state. But for the most part, I try to stay Albany on down. Nobody's watching from north of Albany, but that's about as far as I want to go. So there's enough right here where I can actually visit people and at least provide value. So my understanding is that the library has two options. Okay, so years ago somebody was forward thinking and got the library on the approved list for DASNY. Okay, and that required special legislation at the time to do that, to get on that list. And that gives the library the option of either financing the bonds through the school district or using DASNY. Now, again, we call that a conduit. Unfortunately, this is the only municipality or local government that doesn't have the ability to just go out and borrow on its own. It needs someone to borrow on their behalf, and so you have to use what we call a conduit. And DASNY is a conduit. It was a state agency that finances a lot of libraries, and it's actually, I think, the second or third largest issuer of bonds in the country, because if you can think, DASNY is Dormitory Authority of the State of New York. Right, so it was originally invented to finance dorms and SUNY campuses, but they do all kinds of higher ed and hospitals and healthcare and large transactions. So, but they also finance libraries and any other non-for-profit organization. So, you have the ability to go through the school district. Now, pre-referendum, our role is pretty simple. It's how much it's going to cost me. I mean, when you go and have these forums, community forums that you have, and you'll have public hearings, and you'll have the architect up there, and they'll be speaking and showing the whole the whole project and the cost, and so if the presentation is an hour long, it's 55 minutes for the architect and then 5 minutes for me, because then it's just one slide, right? Basically, in effect, okay, what is this? That's basically all it is. What's this going to cost me? And it's pretty simple. It's you have a project for X amount that gets spread across your tax base, and it costs the average homeowner X amount of dollars. And if you see, if you take a visit to, say, Moffitt's website, you'll see what they've done to estimate the cost, and it is all estimates at this time, right? I mean, the project amount will be defined, but in terms of the rate at which you borrow, that's not going to be defined until you actually borrow the money, right? So pre-referendum, and in terms of, okay, what do we need to do now? What we have to do is come up with the project cost, and then we figure out the cost estimates, per homeowner. I mean, that's basically it. In terms of from my end. You'll also have, as I mentioned, an attorney that working on your behalf, and so they would draw up a referendum language for the proposition, and any resolutions that need to be adopted, and there's not many, but they would again, until you want to minimize any kind of expense, right? And there's really nothing to. There's not a heck of a lot to do until after the project is approved, right? So, I guess I would advise engaging your next meeting, or even if it's just done via, phone call or something, for information gathering in terms of, what the language in the referendum needs to look like, and other than that, pre-referendum, that's it. But post-referendum is when we start to really, when the real work, begins. I brought a sample of various things. I guess one of the determinations, and I don't know how deep you want to get into this, but what I did is I came up with a number, and I don't know how real this, how real number this is. I mean, what number are we talking about in terms of, what's the number that's kind of floating around for the amount of the project? It's in,
Could be up to 8 million.
yeah. Okay, so I used 9. Now, again, that's my number. That's my number only. But basically, I mean, and this is, you know, again, nothing more than, you know, if you went onto a, it's the same joke if you don't mind, mortgagecalculator.com, if there is such a thing, you know, and you put, say, $9 million over, you know, 15, 20, 25, 30 years or whatever, and see what the annual debt service would be, that's what it is. And so what I try to tend to do, and I just put, you know, what it just reading from left to right. I'm sorry. Reading from left to right, I like to provide a range of rates, okay? Because final costs are not defined until you actually, you know, sell the bonds. You know, I want to show, you know, say, so on the left-hand column is 15 years at 3.75, and the right-hand column is 15 years at 3.25. You know, in the event that, you know, rates do move, you see, because a lot of people, you know, talk about, oh, well, rates are so great right now, and this is the time, and all that kind of stuff, and I try not to get all into that. What I try to do is show, because the question will always come up, what happens if rates do go up? Okay, so you like to see what that incremental cost is, okay, and so there's basically 3, you know, I put 3 columns: the amount, the annual debt service, and then the total debt service over the life of the bonds. Okay, but again, this is based on a $9 million note. But so I guess the point I'm trying to make here is the difference between, and again, I don't want to minimize anything, but you're talking about the difference of rates at 3.25 versus 3.75 is about $30,000 a year. Okay, now on an annual basis, are you going to feel that much? You know, yes, but over the life is where it actually, you know, kind of adds up. But you know. In the referendum, this is unique also about amongst libraries where you don't see this, and in any other fire districts or school districts, the voters have to approve the amount of the bond, which is called up to 8, and they also have to approve the annual tax levy, so a not to exceed amount for the tax levy. So there's 2 numbers that go into the referendum. And so what we tend to do is put an amount higher than what we otherwise think it would be.
So total amount of any given bond, and then the voters also decide how much
The annual levy. So in effect, what they're doing is giving you the explicit approval to raise that levy for the next, let's just say it's 20 years, a 20-year bond or so. They're going to approve not only the amount to spend on the project,
total,
or the amount to borrow on the
Amount
project,
borrowed.
but also the amount of the tax levy. So then in effect, it's carved out of the operating budget every year. You know, your budget is subject to vote. That portion technically is not subject to vote every year. They've given you this explicit approval to raise that levy for the next 20 years. And that's what the referendum allows. And that's what it does. And again, that's a unique, you never run across that, only with libraries.
So when you present your budget for the operating budget for the year, let's say, you know, a year or two down the road when you're in the building, you don't include that amount because that's already been approved in the vote?
Well, I mean, it's presented, it's all in the presentation, you know, but they're not voting on that. It's funny the first year. I notice that, you know, you talk to other libraries who've done this, you know, who have put this in there, and that's probably your best bet. Because you don't want it to be misinterpreted. You can't say that, oh, we're not increasing the levy. Because ultimately in 16, 17 or so, when it is time to raise the levy to allot for the debt service that is going to be paid back on the bonds, the tax levy is going to go higher, right? However, they've already given you an approval, so they're not voting on that part. So you don't want to say, oh, well, we're not, you know, it's only a 2% tax increase. I mean, it's all in the marketing of it, you know, but in effect, the budget is going higher.
But our yearly budget, that is within, we set that.
Right.
And this
Operating.
is separate from that.
Operating
Yes, yeah,
budget.
well, like I said, this is approved. It's approved outside this budget, and it is approved for the next 20 years. So technically, they're not approving that every year.
No.
It's
Yeah.
one of those little quirky things that kind of comes up.
Do municipalities go with 30-year more?
Well,
loans?
you know, and okay, so
It's
in terms of the term is it's interesting. In if you go through DASNY, well, this is depending on the project, and I've kind of heard it, you know, kind of different things, right? But I mean, let's just assume there's going to be new construction at the Silesian property, brand new construction that would be, right? So that's all dictated by local finance law. Again, the term. So brand new construction would be 30 years, assuming you're going to build a. And I would imagine you are building a Class A building that's, you know, brick and fireproof and all that kind of stuff. So that would get 30 years.
So
Okay, now,
it's,
now if
it's
you
always 30 years.
no,
What do you think?
now if you were to just to renovate this, and now for instance, Moffett is financing over 15 years because they're renovating an old building.
Right.
They're renovating an old Class C building through the school district, and it's dictated by local finance law. And local finance law says that something like that can only be financed over 15 years, a maximum of 15 years. Now, a new construction could be financed over a maximum of 30 years. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to
Right.
finance it over 30 years. And so now, it's interesting because financing bonds through DASNY doesn't have, they're not subject to that, to local finance law. So you, even if, you know, you were to renovate this building and in 15 years just seemed, you know, too short of a period of time for everybody's to stomach, then you could actually still finance it longer over, you know, through DASNY.
Okay.
But, you know, like I said, that's, so to answer your question over 15, 20, 30, does any, I generally not, you know, you try, you know, what I would do is, and again, take this down, 15, 20, or 25 years, look at the total debt service over the life, and look at the difference on the annual debt service. See the numbers that I'm, you know, so I guess what the point here is though, that if you can withstand and maybe another, you know, 60,000 between 20 and 25 years, and save a couple million over the life, you know, that might be prudent, you know, that would be, and again, these aren't determinations that we're going to make today, but this is types of things that we would talk about, you know, prior to the referendum and prior to, you know, cost estimates, you know, letting the public know all the cost estimates.
It's similar to getting a 15-year mortgage versus
Yeah,
a 30-year mortgage.
yeah,
You're paying
right,
more
and-
just over time.
Exactly, and right, and so we'd all like to pay our houses off in 15 years, but right, but you can't necessarily do that, right? So, it's, you know, there's again, it's always a sensitive subject, but go ahead.
What,
Just trying to give you an idea.
if, big if, we decided to work with you, once we have our amount, what exactly do you do for us in terms of getting the information out to the public?
Well, that's, we don't do any marketing in terms of, you know, creating brochures or anything like that. I mean, we'd attend public hearings because there's always there's always people that, you know, have questions about bonds, and then there's some very knowledgeable people out in the audience, who, you know, have, you know, really, really good questions. And I always find that if I'm not there, you'll get all the tough questions. If I am there, then there are no tough questions. But, you know, I don't do anything marketing. I mean, we just, you know, straight, pre-referendum, it's just coming up with cost estimates. I'm not getting, we don't do any marketing or for the, you know, to the public.
Okay.
Like I said, we'd be happy to support and attend all public meetings, but, you know, we're not creating brochures or anything like that.
Okay. And how do you make your money?
We get paid when the bonds close. Okay, so in, you know, there's been libraries, and unfortunately, we do a whole lot more if certain ones just didn't go down back in, you know, 5-6 years ago. I mean, there were a lot of libraries that were going out for votes at that time, and it was just a sign of the times, right? And, you know, so we aren't able to. A lot didn't go past, but there were some districts libraries that we worked for. You know, Great Neck Library, which just closed a couple of weeks ago, worked for 6 years, and it went down once, the first time, you know, and initially in 2009, and we didn't get paid. And then we did all the work all over again, and then it passed, and then we finally got paid 6 years later. So.
So you get a percent of the bond?
No, it's a
is the way it
flat,
works?
here, I'll show you, there's two, I have a cost of issuance breakdown through a bond. This is real life, I crossed off the name. But this is real life fees associated with a bond through DASNY. This is something that just happened a couple of,
Yeah, pass it.
But there's-
Recently.
There are two options, whether going to the school district or DASD, that the difference is considerable. Is what you would charge different between,
it's a little bit,
I would-
it's a little bit less than, you know, for a school district bond, yes.
a little bit less, so the cost goes to DASNY, that, you know, we're hearing it costs 200,000 on
More,
on
yeah.
average. That is a fee to DASNY or whatever it's called. That's where that 200,000 goes
Yeah.
to.
For the most part, DASNY's fees straight up is 75,000. They also have their own counsel. That's the top two fees. That's DASNY fee. Ready to, may I just, may I continue through here? Or no? Right. So they have, that's DASNY's fee and their own counsel,
Their own council.
right? So it's 75 and 80, and that's standard. So that's really the difference. I mean, you see everything, you know, so now, our fee is a little bit less, that's mine there, and that would be the same. Where's mine? Financial advisor, 22.5.
Okay.
And that would be the same.
When you say that when the bond closes, that means you have the financing secure.
Yeah, well,
Everything is-
right, sorry, so the process of the process of the bond, you know, you have a sale date and a closing date. And it's not, you know, it's not a moving target like your house where we say, okay, it's like, okay, when are we gonna close? And it's set up with an agenda and a schedule, you know, by DASNY, and by us. And, you know, we pick a sale date for the bonds, and then all the documents get signed and then sent back. And on the day of the closing, all the funds get wired to to actually a trustee. And then everybody gets paid from the proceeds of the bonds, generally speaking.
The
So
trustee,
the-
that's the trustee, a 1 year upfront, $300?
Yes. So in effect, what DASNY, you know, what DASNY's procedure is such that an account is set up on your behalf, in your name, but all the proceeds go to this account, trustee, you know, government, you know, by a trustee, and then anytime you want to spend money on the project, you just make a requisition, and then they pay, you know, they pay vendors. And from what I hear, it's pretty seamless. It's so you know, you just go online, pay a vendor, and then, you know, money gets wired to the account. But on the day of the closing, all the money goes to that account, and then there's three accounts, sub-accounts set up: cost of issuance account, construction account, and a debt service account. And the cost of issuance, everybody gets paid on the day of the closing from the proceeds of the bonds. In this case, that's how it turned out. Okay, so there's also, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, this is DASNY, so the first two numbers were fees that ended up being paid to DASNY.
Yes.
If it were done through the school district doing the bond, all the other expenses remain except for those top two?
No, there's only just three there's only three. There'd be a financial advisor, that's us, your counsel, and a rating. So it's only really three. So yes, the bottom line is it's 250 versus 50, basically. 250 versus 60. Significant.
So
It's
almost-
obviously advantageous
it's
to go to
almost
the school
200
district. Yeah.
It's almost $200,000 cheaper.
Yes. In addition, DASNY has annual fees, and that's what this whole breakdown is at the bottom. They charge an amount which would on this size transaction over the life, it's a few $1,000s a year, and also the trustee charges an annual fee. It's very, you know, there's a lot of fees associated with the DASNY deal.
So it's more like, rather than 200,000, but
Three.
if you done
Three.
by 300,000,
Yes.
you go with DASNY.
Yes.
Okay.
So our first goal then should obviously be to go to the one that's $300,000 less.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, ideally, and I've been in, now, let me just, you know, there are places that have still gone through DASNY. I will. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that it'd be a whole lot less work on everybody to go through the school district. That'd be a whole lot cheaper, a whole lot better deal for the taxpayers, and that's the bottom line, isn't it? You know, to the extent that it can work, and the school district will sell the bonds on the library's behalf. It's no brainer.
I have some questions, if we go that route. What effect would this have on the school district's future bonding? It takes away how much they can bond, but how much they can bond is a lot of money, is it not?
You know, it's interesting, and that's why sometimes you wind up seeing libraries still go through DASNY, unfortunately, because you get things like this. And now that question can only be from, you know, I've seen that, I've seen that objection, and there's absolutely nothing, zero effect on their bonding. Their debt limit is $190 million, and it's based on 10% of their average full valuation. Okay, so Lord knows nobody goes near their debt limit.
10% of what? I'm sorry.
Full value, average 5-year full valuation. So the market value, the total market value of all the properties within the school district, if you add everything up, that's the full value of the.
But they can take.
Yeah, not the assessed, but the full. And so it's 10% of that number.
Okay.
So in other words, it's about a $2 billion tax base, or $1.9 billion tax base. That's everybody's, all the properties. And so, you know, I will say that the district, and I visited their website, school district. It's a great website. It's very informative. They do a great job with their budget marketing every year, and it seems, you know, very, very well run. And you know, but on their rating, no. I mean, if you know, so this would entail. In the event that you go through the school district, and again, that's the way to go. There's a whole lot less work involved, right? But you have to understand that they'd be selling bonds on your behalf. So there's really nothing. I brought an official statement from. This is a few years ago already, but this is Sayville School District. It says library building serial bonds. Now this is one in which the school district, and this is what Moffett will look like. It's going to say Washingtonville Central School District. Library building serial bonds. That's it. This whole document, there's about 2 references to the actual library. Okay, so one is the authorization and purpose, and security and source of payment. Basically saying that the voters of the library have approved this, and then it's backed by the taxpayer dollars of the library district. The other one is the authorization and purpose, and meaning saying, what are we selling these bonds for? We're selling it to build a new building. That's it, right? So. Now, you understand that this is, you guys can have that, it's their bonds, right? So it wouldn't have to do anything. So that would be, the school district would have to apply for the rating. They'd use their bond counsel, their financial advisor.
Does it affect their bond rating?
No.
Does it cost them? Surely there's a cost. Is it a cost that libraries reimburse, or?
I'd imagine if I'm, you know, in that,
Okay.
and you know that if I'm the school district, you would pick up the costs associated, all costs associated with selling the bonds.
The school district or the library?
The library.
In lieu of paying another $250 for DASNY,
Yeah.
we
It's the same
would reimburse the school district for their work.
Yeah, I mean, within reason. I don't know what, I mean, again, I'm just talking about the cost of issuance.
Well, I'm not
Council,
talking about
advisor.
cost. It's like considering we're saving $250,000 not using DASNY, we would be up to.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna be
paying the
responsible
school
for the
district.
cost of the financial advisor, the council, and you probably have your own counsel in addition. So the council fees might be a little bit higher than that, but not significantly, and then a rating. And so, you know, again, it's the difference between that, you know, the total cost to DASNY. And now I don't know if there's, you know, cost of a referendum, those types of things, but that's going to be, you'd have to pay those, pick up those
It's a
costs
fixed
regardless,
cost, yeah.
right? So
Okay.
so. 'Cause- 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 'cause-
they can't deny us to bond through them.
Well, that's a legal question, but you know, but
Okay.
and so you should, yeah, that's a legal question.
Okay.
I mean, as far as I know, it's the same idea as when you present your budget to them, right? How is that? And that's what was the question I was actually thinking about before, the tax collection procedure. When I was thinking about, you just said you got another tax bill came in, but it's the same idea. How does that work now in terms of the annual budget? Who holds the budget vote? And
We do, it's
We
totally
have
separate.
our-
totally separate.
Yeah.
So
They
they don't
co-
do
they
any.
collect the funds for us.
Okay, so that's going to be a question though too, in terms of who handles the budget vote, because in effect, like I said, that they are their bonds, and that's just something that I would talk to Moffett about. It's exact, these are the questions that kind of came up, but I'd rather let the attorneys kind of do their thing.
So if we had to pay vendors, it would be, I mean, I'm not suggesting that we tell them what to
There's no
do with
reason-
their
well-
bonds, but they would have to cash in their bonds to pay vendors.
Well, there's in my opinion, there's no reason. There's no reason why on the day that you close the bonds, as opposed to it going to, like, say, with DASNY, that the school district doesn't just wire the funds to your account, and you pay vendors by yourself.
Mhm.
One of the things that they're going to want to ensure is that debt service is paid, right? And that's something that might come up.
Vendors, you mean?
Annual debt service.
Debt service. Oh, okay.
Again, because they're their bonds.
Well, they hold, my understanding is that they hold title to the property until the bond is paid.
Yeah, again, these are the legal stuff that has to be worked out. But that's what Moffitt's doing. I hear what I'm just hearing again. As you can see, that the attorneys get a whole lot more than I do. So I let them do that work. But there's what they're entering into is what they call the leaseback or something. They're leasing the building, back, because technically, one can't borrow, and that's the same thing it's sort of like that with DASNY. I mean, there's in effect, in my opinion, none of this stuff should matter to anybody, right? You're going to borrow the money, you're going to pay it back, you're going to build a building, you're going to put a library in it, and that's it, and it's going to be paid back, right? And you're going to raise the levy enough to pay the debt service, to pay the principal and interest back on loans. There's no but if you don't own a building, again, let the attorneys walk you through this. But if you don't own the building, if the school district doesn't own the building, they can't bond. They can't bond on your behalf, right? So that's why you wind up leasing it, and then they lease it back, or something really kooky
Okay.
to make it work. Totally legitimate. It just sounds a little funny.
Just a quick question. I might be unclear here. So I'm looking at the estimated annual debt service. Say we decide we're aggressive and we say 15 years, and we say $767,000. That's annual cost that we'd have to increase our budget, right?
Correct.
So the average taxpayer right now probably maybe pays, I'll just say, it's $110 a household in the village for the library tax a year on top of their school bill. So now it might go up to 100, could be
It'd be
200,
like $50,
be about 200, yeah.
$50-$60 or so.
50, yeah, it'd be, $180. So that's kind of what we would look at, right? That's probably where the school district would be like, you're increasing the school budget, the tax bill. That's where they might have.
$750,000.
That's where they might have an issue. That doesn't have any, impact on the 2%. Getting all that information out that that the district is able to increase by 2%, but the library comes along and adds on an additional percentage on top, amount on top of that. Is that where it gets a little
But
cloudy?
as they do with their capital projects, what's the difference?
Correct. No, what I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a
We
separate
don't-
line
we
item
don't
on the
add-
tax.
We don't add to their budget increase.
We don't add to it, but that still comes into the tax bill. You still pay your
Right.
school taxes, and that would be just an increase in the
But
school
if there's
tax.
a
But it's
taxpayer
defined.
backlash, it would be general. that the taxpayers are upset about their quote taxes,
Right,
partially because we sort of push them over the edge. It'll affect the school.
yes.
Hmm.
That's,
Right.
we're on the same page.
Yeah, that's the, go through a lot of these, and especially, fire districts as well as also school district public hearings. There's a lot of that. There was a lot of financing back in the late '90s, so a lot of that is actually coming off the books. So there's a lot of school districts out there going out for bond votes now. In my opinion, it's, people get it, right? I mean, you're borrowing X amount of dollars, you have to pay it back. It's gonna cost. And that's it, either you want it or you don't. I mean, there's no real way to sugarcoat it. Right, I mean, I might be oversimplifying, but you're absolutely right, that's the biggest.
And I'd much
That's the
rather
big-
pay for
now-
a library than a water bill, I can tell you that much.
Here we go. Now,
I can put that on record. Because I get nothing out of that.
Here, so you're right.
Tour the plant.
So you're right. Here's the right. So the tax levy right now is approximately 1.2. It's going to go up to say 1.8, right?
Right.
So that means that a person paying, here's some tax bills.
Okay.
Okay, a person is paying $112 in library tax. So that's going to go up about $55.
Mm-hmm. How'd you get my tax bill?
So so what I do is that.
About 9 million bonding.
Yeah.
No,
That's-
well, that's why I lowered it because that's that my estimates are high. Yeah, and so it makes you feel better.
There you go.
No, so Goshen CSD has a great site as well as the tax. Everybody's tax bill is online,
Hmm?
Yeah.
right? So you can just search by last name. And so what I
Oh, you're right.
yeah, it's in here somewhere. Let's see.
Might more.
Here, you want to feel better?
Yeah. Can I get my other home?
So I guess and one of the things I did. Yeah, there we go. And so what I do is it's pretty simple. I gave him to make him feel better. I didn't, but no. What I so all you do is look in the I just punched up everybody's names. I mean, it's pretty simple. But so you know why, and you know why I did that though too is, and this is the issue that we had. Again, per marketing, you talked about marketing before, right? So what is traditionally what people want to know is, okay, what is the average, or that's part of the marketing. What is the average homeowner going to pay? Okay. Now, because this place is in 5 different towns and a village, same thing with Moffett. It's in 4 different towns. Is there an average, right? There are people that are on this table that pay more and less, and it seems to me though the average is, what you said before, and that's why if you go on Moffitt's website where they came up with that $55 to $80 range, because it's so diverse. I think that's similar. So maybe to some that seems like significant amount, but that's it. And then you say the amount, and then be quiet. Let them decide whether that's worth it or not. I see all kinds of things. Well, you spend it's less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. And so people say, well, what do you want me to never drink coffee again? Like you said with the with the water bill or something. I like my Starbucks every day, right? I want to spend my $4 or $5 on anyway, but.
How much is Moffett bonding? You're saying they have an average? 55 to 80? 7 million?
6.9. Sounds better. Well, they're actually they've gotten some reserves, and so the cost of the project is 7.5, but they have $500,000 or so to put towards the project, and that's really what that is. But let me see.
And they're doing a 15-year
Yeah, again, because they wanted to go through the school district,
to save that money,
That's right.
to save that nut.
and then they saw the difference between 15 and say 20 and extending it out, and they said, let's just bite the bullet and try to do
Let
it,
it fly like
and
that.
try to let it
Save
Yeah.
the millions of dollars
over
in
time,
interest.
and it, but again, it's a
Now, is that something you came up with, that you helped them with looking at the comparison?
yeah. Well, that's why I kind of put these things on paper too. Like I said, if you can afford now, I have to sharpen up those numbers. Obviously, I mean my estimates are very high, and so we once the architect comes up with a final cost amount, or you determine a final amount to borrow. and then we'll, you know, bring the numbers down, and then, you know, we'll look at the comparisons. What does it look like, you know, 15, 20, 25, you know, 30, and you'll see. I mean, typically they usually get financed over 20, and I think that was in their mind initially too, was 20. It's just that, again, that was dictated, it's out of their control. It's local finance law. This is the, you guys can have this too. This was the, and I wrote this about 6 years ago. This is the referendum language. I was talking about it, and again, you know, your attorney's going to plagiarize this, and which is, you know, fine. There's no reason to change it, right? Maybe plagiarize is a wrong word, but they're going to use the same exact template, so you can have that too. That's the referendum language that's put in there. And again, there's 2 blank spaces for the amount, and then the annual tax levy, not to exceed. But again, pre-referendum, that's, you know, that's really all that you really need to do. I mean, there's publication requirements and notices. Just like your budget, you have to give, I don't know, 30 days, 45 days, whatever it is, prior any kind of, you know, hearings. So I think if we're thinking, you know, but you know, we're thinking the fall of this year for a referendum. I mean, it's a lot, you know, because of, you know, how it works. I mean, unless you're going to call a whole bunch more meetings, you know, the time just zooms. Before you know it, that's right on top of you. So I guess, you know, just to kind of, you know, sum it up. I mean, I understand the architects. You understand, you decide on a plan, define a cost. We can help you define, you know, come up with the cost estimate in terms of effect on taxpayer, and talk about the best way to kind of present that. Get the attorney on board and ask him what types of resolutions that the board has to adopt and going forward with this, and who's going to draft the language for the referendum. That's it.
But you would get involved with the bonding process post referendum.
Well, this is the thing. Now, you know, it's interesting, and in the event that the district, the library, is able to go through the school district, which, God willing, that's what will happen, because that is the right thing to do. I'm not the advisor to the school district, so I would not be involved in the bonding process. However, what I can do is, you know, kind of help you get to that point, and then just be a resource. What I would do is, they use a firm out of Syracuse. It's a good firm, and you know. But you can use me as a resource. Generally, I've been in this situation before, where and there was a library recently who I worked with in the past. He went to a new school, went to a new library, did it, and then wound up going through the school district. But I was just there as a resource, and we had something in writing on, you know, like a contract in place. But we never charged or anything. This is how I envision. Ideally, this is how it works. I come help you and represent and be a resource. Come to a couple meetings, be on the phone all the time whenever you need me, and then referendum passes, and you sell the bonds. Again, this is very little involvement on your behalf that you have to do if the school district sells the bonds. So all the work, administrative effort, all the legwork is done by them.
But to get to that point,
And then, so they would sell the bonds. They would sell the bonds, wire you the money, and I'd walk away, and I probably wouldn't get paid.
if we were to go through the school district, what is that process? Do we give them a call, arrange for a meeting?
Well, that's what I would suggest. Again, get that number in mind. I don't know what the relationship is like, but I would contact the business administrator there. Miller is that his name?
Yeah, Robert.
Again, the work is going to be done by him, and so you might just walk into his office and he says, "Okay, great, yeah, tell us what we need to do." That happens. Ideally that's what happens,
Really?
and there's no reason why that shouldn't happen.
Okay.
Now, and then again, present your ideas to the board. But they can go on concurrently. There's no reason why you can't, reach out, and if you want me to, meet with him or have a conference call with him and, whatever. I mean, I'm more than happy to help. I mean, I wind up, I know it sounds silly. I mean, I wind up volunteering my services a lot, just like you guys do. It's kind of like a way for me to, do this. I mean, a lot of times like I said, if this all goes down and we don't pick this up for another 15 years and everybody does the work, nobody gets paid. And that's not, that kind of happens. But, I guess what I'd like to do is at least, kind of send you something, kind of proposal either way, right? And then you can have it and in the event that it does, but I am going to, a dozen board meetings, and then I have to start saying, well, I can't volunteer my service that much, But, again, I've been in situations where we just kind of help and just be a resource. I'm more than happy to do that. And that's why we do more libraries. That's a fact. There's nobody done more library, through DASNY or through IDAs than we have. School district bonds get done all the time. Library bonds get done all the time. I do the City of Kingston, and they have a library. It's a city library, and we sell, when City of Kingston sells their bonds, nobody votes on anything, and we do things for the city. A lot of libraries are village libraries where nothing's subject to referendum. So libraries are financed all the time. It's just that some of these type though, it's just a couple, 2, 3, 4, maybe a year, at most. And then DASNY deals, there's probably just about, maybe 1 or 2 a year. Now, last year we did Crawford Library, which is in Monticello. And you can call one of these people, Mary Page, Klaus, that was done through DASNY. Great Neck Library, which is done through DASNY, Harbor Fields on Long Island, Suffren, we just refinanced those in Rockland. That's a great library. You want to see what library should look like. It's a great library. Same idea with the park, kind of thing. Same idea. So any of these, Ruth Boland is not there anymore, and neither is Alan Parrish at Crawford, but Mary Page, and then one of the trustees and Martell at Suffern Library would be the good contact there. And then say Jane Marino too at Nyack, be another person.
So, back to the very beginning, the public votes on the annual debt service and the amount, the principal basically.
The amount to borrow.
The amount to borrow.
Right.
So in marketing materials, if you will, we still run the numbers and we say, well, look, if we're going to do a 25-year, it's going to be this many million more than if we try to do it in 15-year, but it's with everything else, your monthly, your annual cost is going to be higher for a 15-year.
Yeah, they vote on these two amounts.
Well, but
this amount and this.
People are going to say $55 versus $110 more. I mean, and they might even $110 for more library services for a larger library. They might not even care. But the point being, some people will look at apples to apples and they'll liken it to their own mortgage and go, well, how can you even think of, do you think you guys can actually spend $5,000 versus $7,000 a month, or what I'm saying? If they're going to nickel and dime to that degree, people are going to be inclined to do that. Some people are going to be inclined to do that. People who come to programs here, who appreciate the services, hopefully they're going to step up and go, well, yeah. So what? $110 a year gets us that many more services.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's a non-issue.
Yeah, I think the board just makes a decision as to what amount. That's it. That's just that's it. I think that's just the board decision. What amount or over what term do we think is appropriate? And maybe it is somewhere right in the middle, and then maybe that's why 20 years always kind of comes up. Because that's the way it that one just seems the most reasonable. But I think it's a board decision as to what amount seems appropriate, and that's the amount that you go with. It's that same kind of decision that you'd go with your personal personal amount, personal money.
So we defend that. That's what it is. We only come with one number, with one plan. We present one plan, and we defend that one plan.
Well, I mean, there's that also is a board decision on how you go approach this, right? Are you elected? And it's two ways. There's two ways to govern, right? some would argue, well, we come up with a plan, this is what we elected to do, and this is what we present. Now, there's always gonna be A, B, and there's people gonna say, oh, did you think of this, did you think of that? There's a whole lot of that. So maybe you wind up going out there and then, you get this so much response that maybe you just wanna take a step back and say, okay, well, it looks like maybe we have to, kind of take, these types of things into control, do something like this. This is what the people want. There's others that have just kind of started with a blank piece of paper and just invited everybody in. So this is what we're thinking, And I know that I see, you've had community forums. I don't know what these entail, but the community better than I do. We can sit down, and I've been through a lot of these, and we can sit down as a group if you wanna really discuss how these things are presented. Again, I'm just as a resource, really. I'm not gonna say, first you do this, first you do that. First you knock on every single door out there, or but I know it's a whole lot of outreach. It's a tremendous amount of outreach because I see the same exact objections. How come I didn't know? Well, we're having a meeting right now, and there's nobody here, right? We're talking about it right now, and it's the same thing. When did you guys come up with this? Well, I don't know. We've been talking about it for about 2 years now, right? In fact, actually, we had a vote on it about 6 years ago too. And you've been right. So I get that saying. I see that. I see that all the time. And again, I never want to minimize any effect. $55 to someone is a lot. It is, and so, and to some, they say, wow, that's no brainer. And the site that I think is a great idea. That's just me personally, but I think it's a great idea. What you guys are all thinking, and this, so. But that's me. So you don't know what's in someone's pocket. You don't know what they find value in. So it's a matter of it's a whole lot of outreach, and you can do so much, and you're still going to get the same objection. You're still going to get the same objection, and I still see it. I see it all the time too. If you decide you can go this way, just okay. We're going to come up with a plan. This is where we're going to go. Or you can say, okay, now we're going to have this whole big, huge committee. I guarantee that you're going to come to the same exact result, regardless. Right? Because I'm sure what you have done, you decide what is the right thing to do.
No, I got a question for you.
Yes.
In regards to fundraising prior to, let's take your Great Neck. Do they have money in the? Have they raised funds prior to? What percentage have they raised prior to going for their $10 million bond? What percentage do they have going to the public? Are they going?
No, I think it's a continuous.
Are they saying we're going to build a $13 million library?
Exactly.
We're going to go for 10.
How'd you know?
We have 3.
Yeah. No, it was 13 with 10.
All I had to do was type it into the computer, and I found out.
It was 13, and I went for 10. But they it's like kind of add alternates, saying if we can get this. And that's why the language is worded that way, where it says that plus any additional fundraising. So not, this is not necessarily. That's why we word it that way, so that because if someone walks in the door right now and bequests $1 million to us and say I want to name that wing,
right?
The Reed wing, then you should be able to spend that on the project, right? You don't want to restrict anything. So again, it's any additional proceeds through fundraising, through donations, to spend on the project.
What have you seen successful libraries have up front?
So even smaller libraries, maybe say 10% of it or so, I'd say. But that include maybe some capital reserves, not necessarily fundraising, but money towards the project. One of,
closing costs.
Yeah, I mean, it would just start. Yeah, because you understand how this starts. I mean, you're going to be spending money, right, on the project, and then you're not really going to borrow the money until you get further down the road. So you need stuff to, that's why one of these resolutions you're going to adopt is a reimbursement resolution, so you can reimburse yourself with proceeds, But no, that includes capital reserves or money that's been put away. That's not straight up donations. They have these, put a little, little things that they have a little garden out there where people buy a brick and all that kind of stuff. It's an ongoing. There's a Friends of the Library which I'm sure you have and all that. Mm-hmm. So, I say 10% combination between capital reserves that they've been planning on for the past number of years, or either through surplus or whatever's setting aside for capital reserve. It's very hard to do that now, obviously. No tax cap and all that kind of stuff, but
But you
Um,
just mentioned to reimburse ourselves for, costs up front, leading up to the referendum and all of that.
mm.
Is there a date by which we have to have that vote here as a board prior to going?
Yeah,
to
I
referendum?
would just, I think that it's a tax rule, actually. It's an IRS thing. You can't start reimbursing yourself. I think it's 18 months after. It's like
After.
So like if you spend money on January 1, you don't have, by this June of, 16, you can't reimburse yourself anymore, with tax exempt bonds, with the proceeds of tax exempt bonds. It's like, where does it end? So that's why that rule is. So I guess what I would do is, and again, the next person is the attorney to get in there and get all the appropriate resolution. Get it on board. I mean, it's here. You have the resolution. You'll have the resolution. It's not binding by any means, right? But it's just something I would just do, right away.
Okay.
I wouldn't wait. There's no reason to. I mean, again, that's similar to with the referendum language. Oh, you need a reimbursement resolution? All right, I'll have so-and-so email it to you. It's simple enough. It basically says it's a resolution of intent to reimburse yourself with tax exempt proceeds if in the event that you sell bonds.
Just one idle thought is, as far as having money, as other libraries have put money away in tax reserve, I'm sorry, what it's called. We've purchased and paid off that land, so in a sense, we've kind of done that indirectly. So,
Yeah, you reduce the cost of the project, right?
After we're done.
Yeah.
600,000
104.
plus the interest.
No, I'm just saying we already own
Right,
that
right,
land
that
there,
can
which
be
accounts
counted as
for,
a
what was
credit.
it, 630,000?
Right,
No,
So-
it's 600.
600, so.
Yeah, so you like
so
I
in
said,
a
you
sense,
just,
we have done that.
definitely you reduce the cost of the project. That's a lot. That's less than you're gonna have to raise, the bond. Exactly. I was just curious. What is the tax? How do the taxes come in? County collects, sends it to the school districts.
No,
No,
school district,
School district collects,
sends it to us.
sends it directly to you
Yeah.
via
In-
check.
Installments.
Checks are spread over the winter.
There's three
Well, Jack-
thousand.
We get 50, 40, and then 10. 50%, 40%, and then 10% in March.
Starting in November.
Starting in September, at the end of September, like September 30th or so.
September 30th.
We get our first check, yeah.
And then you get another one in
And 2
January.
months later, at the
2
end
months
of
later.
November, yep.
Okay.
And then the small one at the end, the 10%.
All right. So and we pay taxes. In September and March, is that what it is?
September.
School taxes,
Yeah.
September.
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 Right. I'm
30th
just saying
September.
our taxes period are due in September,
September,
and
by
twice
September
a year.
30th, no, September 30th.
School tax
Oh,
is
school
September,
Taxes are September.
then
Okay.
town and county are later, or well,
January.
January.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Early in the year,
Okay.
later in our fiscal year, yeah.
Okay.
Well, you certainly have given us lots to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm more than happy to come back, or if you're gonna kind of split off, or if you need to talk and ask or whatever. Anything else, but don't put the cart before the horse either. It's the main objective right now. You have a few details to kind of go
Yeah,
through,
we
but
certainly
but
do.
it's in terms of the process after the bond, after the referendum. That's when it gets a little hairy. But your main focus is just getting this project passed.
Yeah.
Come up with a cost amount, coming up with the right plan, defining the cost, and then getting it passed and getting that word out and letting people know that this is, getting them voting,
Mm-hmm.
The rest of it is, you guys don't have to worry about that. It'll all be Matt's job, administrative effort and all that kind of stuff.
We'll worry regardless.
That's our job.
Yes. So, thank you very much, Don.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Drive safe.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night now.
Yeah.
See you next time.
You take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay. I'll wait.
We're still on, our meeting is still in business, right?
Yes, it is. I'm waiting for the direction.
I certainly hope we can work it out where we, save ourselves $200,000 or $300,000 by going through the school district. I hope the school district,
So I think
sympathetic
we
to
should-
that point of view.
we need to set up a meeting with Matt and Jack and, thank you.
I'm always very pleasant when I go over there, believe me. And they're always very nice to us too, so,
Good.
right.
So who's the point of contact? Miller?
Yeah, well, Robert Miller.
Robert.
Yep.
Okay. In case it's a few more minutes before Matt gets back, we can go through some of the committee reports if you have anything to discuss. Friends?
Well, the only Friends thing, actually, Matt talks about it in his report. We have a speaker coming on February 7th at the Goshen School Building on Main Street to discuss, or to talk about the OMW Middletown branch, then and now. And he's from the OMW Railway Society, Historical Society. The Goshen Tribune's become a problem, the venue has become a problem because it's very expensive to go to the Hall of Fame, and we've had some help. We've had lots of people make donations, and one year food was donated, and it's just, we end up working very hard and making almost no money, is what it comes down to. So we're trying to figure out some other way to do it, and so far we haven't really had a lot of success. The last thing I think that the committee looked at was Burke, and I don't think that's going to be that reasonably priced either. You get to rent tables, you got to use their caterer, and
What's interesting here is I'm part of Firefighter McPadden. We're having our fundraiser at Burke in the cafeteria. I assume we're using their cafeteria tables, which aren't easy for adults to sit in. So I think I understand the concern.
They
So-
have their cafeteria tables around with chairs for food,
Yeah.
no? They changed them?
Yeah, they're long tables with the chairs that you could fold it up on top and
Oh,
pull
they
them
bought new
down.
ones then. Last time I was there at saying it was these chairs.
It's hard.
for
What about St. John's?
well, the group is 120 people. I don't know if St. John's could handle that, and also I don't know.
Pass
So
one
anyway,
to
that's
Carol.
up in the
Sorry.
air.
To Carol.
Community resources, the newsletter is in the mail.
Check is in the mail?
Okay, did you want to take off?
Well, I think Matt needs to be for one more.
Oh,
Yeah, with
okay.
the tax levy.
okay.
Sunshine Committee everything's fine. We contributed our $50 for the, was it a
Pardon?
Christmas party that the staff had? I forget. Matt had that in his report, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm.
Long report.
Sorry, just went next door for a drink.
Yeah, we're gonna talk to you
Good
about
idea,
that.
right? Yeah.
Maybe we should have our meetings.
Okay, it's my turn, I'm up.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, let's see here what happened. Oh, the newsletter's out. Should be in mailboxes any day. Has anyone received yet? No? Okay. It's online. It's posted. I meant to send a message around because I am proud to say we finally got our email invitation out so that people can visit our site and submit their email so they can get on our mailing lists if they're interested in having brochures, information in general sent to them electronically. Closed Christmas and New Year. Okay, you know this. Let me see. What's he put here? Oh, Overdrive. Just found out at the last Directors Association meeting that RCLS has purchased an add-on with their own monies so that you can now download PDFs of an array of periodicals to your device. I'm sure Bernie's heard about this. And we have a link on the front page for instructions for patrons on how to do that.
So, I'm just curious,
Yeah.
do they expire or they can?
No,
keep
they're on there.
devices
Yeah,
forever?
they're on there until you delete them.
Okay.
So I think 200 simultaneous, or I forget the details, but it's a pretty good deal for what RCLS paid for it. And they're good magazines. I saw everything from GQ to fly fishing. It's a pretty good array of stuff. Let's see. Megan will be meeting with us next month from Paul Mays and Company. She was happy to come in February rather than tonight, saying that she would have a lot more material to show us about their progress. Budget committee met on Thursday last Thursday with Norma and Bernie. I guess we'll talk about that down the line a little bit. Did we pass that already? Where are we?
Yes, we
Oh,
are.
okay, so, I'm taking some Microsoft Excel classes coming up in late February. That was part of my homework for Jerry Nichols. And Jack and Bernie will be going to the Thursday tax cap presentation at RCLS with their Chief Financial Officer, Stephen. I'm going to say his last name. Heifer. Also, state reports coming up, annual state report, and Jack and I probably will also be at RCLS for that. That's a requirement from RCLS. If you have any questions about the state report, you have to have proof that you were there at the presentation, so you don't ask things that they already. So we'll be there. I wanted to mention there's a Junior Friends now again. They'll be meeting here, I think it's the 25th, a Saturday.
Yeah.
So that's great news. They dissolved for a while, but they're back. And we have a couple events. The Friends have a talk on railroading in Orange County coming up at the Goshen Main Street School building in February. That date's set, as far as I know. And the date for the Goshen Trivia Night is still up in the air, but it's been pushed back to April. They're looking for a suitable venue. Last year it was a little tight over here at the is that the reason we got out of there? Too many teams? Well, there's some other issues.
120 is tight, but the problem is we don't make any money over there.
Right.
People do a ton of work and
Right.
get donations and everything else.
So they're looking for
We
a
end up
bigger bang for the buck.
$500 or something after all that work is. They'd like to use it as a fundraiser.
Mm-hmm.
Good
Should
check
be,
with
it's
Delancey's,
They tried Delancey's, it's not big enough.
it's not big enough.
Yeah.
We have a couple other places on their
That was
list.
our first choice was Delancey's.
Pretty much, it was a kind of a, December's always a little bit crazy because we're closed for holidays and a lot, and the newsletter was the main thing, but other than that, it's pretty much been busy in the library. The building's holding together, knock on wood. That's about it.
Okay,
Any questions?
nope. Then new business. The levy discussion, adoption.
Yes. You guys, learn?
Yes.
Weigh in?
Well, Norma and I met with Matt and went over And the short of it is that we're going to suggest going with a 2% increase again this year. Norma
Sure, blame it on me.
may notice. No.
This is new information.
New information. Because we went over with Jack. Jack couldn't be there because of the timing of the meeting, the last minute. So, I don't know if you have your notes from the meeting. The updated spreadsheet here, we added a column at the very bottom, expenses delta year over year, and the total expenses is the same as what we had before, but the short of it is this: we thought we had a surplus from the land payoff. The land payoff is offset by the reserve appropriation that we do every year. So the numbers we were reading in the meeting were off. See on the very bottom, the mortgage principal, which we call a principal, it was really the payment, but it's mostly principal. $104,000 2 years ago, and we paid $60,000 this past year, or this year.
The year we're in now, right?
The year we're in
60,
now.
Yep.
But that $44,000 that we didn't pay was already absorbed by the reserve appropriation that year, right? 63,000,
Right.
and then some. So we were still always operating the red, and we were reducing the reserve appropriation. So this year, the $60,000 that we weren't be spending, we were figuring on numbers that was to our credit. It's really not, because even with that $60,000, we're still taking $12,000 out of reserve appropriation with a 2% increase. So,
But the amount we took out of reserve last year was how much?
63,070.
And the year before that, is similar
well, it's
number?
it's 30. Well, it's 30,000.
Well, the year we're in was 30. Then the prior year was 63.
Right.
All right, so we have reduced the amount each year that we had to dip into the reserve.
Right.
2 years ago, it was 63,000. 1 year ago, 63,000. This year, 30,000. Next year, 12,000.
Right.
So even though we're still borrowing money, we're borrowing far less than
Right.
we had. Not borrowing, we're
Using money that was left over.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
That's
Right.
the good news. Yeah.
Right.
That's up here, Jim. He's got it under reserve appropriation.
Right.
oh, it's right there. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
There are the numbers right there.
Yeah. So from 2 years ago's budget, the reserve appropriation was 63,000. This proposing budget, the reserve appropriation would still be 12,000. So it's, yes, we've decreased it by $51,000, but again, 2 years ago we're spending $104,000 for the land, and this year we're spending $0 for the land, and so we're really only we've burned up the total $104,000 from, and if you follow along the lines, the increase in health insurance, the increase in state retirement 2 years ago from last year, which is going down this year, but there are other things, other line items that are increasing, including salaries that are going
We're
up.
still gonna include that $14,000 for an assistant.
Can I ask about that? What is that?
Well,
I,
that's Matt can speak to the specifics of it, but basically it's a part-time position. We had discussed possibly an assistant director position or something along these lines. Matt examined more carefully and said we really don't need a full-time position. We really do need a part-time position to help out with the office work. Is that
You're correct. Yeah, it was Audrey's old. When Audrey was the office assistant, several years ago, she passed away. At that time, we decided not to replace her. We were sort of under austerity, and we can muddle along this way, but we really would. I think it would be helpful to have somebody versed in that sort of administrative assistant work, to just the filing and the civil service, just to keep on top of that kind of stuff. Originally, this goes back to an idea of having someone take care of some of the more rudimentary sort of office details, so that with the additional workload of the building project, I would be freed up somewhat. That was the thinking. And originally, we were thinking of sort of a full-time position, but when we looked at the numbers and looked at the situation, it just didn't seem feasible. So.
When you say deal with CSEA, what does that mean exactly?
I'm sorry?
Deal with CSEA?
Civil service.
Civil service. What exactly does that mean?
To deal with, just to keep, I mean, they require, adherence to the civil service regulations just requires a lot of paperwork, a lot of sort of busy work, just keeping on top of any time any changes occur with personnel, whether it's change of name, change of salary, change of address, every year with the raises. There's a lot of stuff that's, that Audrey used to take care of. It's important to stay synchronized with civil service, keeping the records updated. Now, it's not just civil service, but it's also filing in general for both for Jack's office and, but basically Audrey covered both of those things. She was, I mean, I've taken it over, and I certainly am able to do it. I just think, if I'm just trying to look ahead to think what would it might be, just to make sure, it might be wise just to have somebody to do that come these, the next couple of years, with the amount of stuff that's going to have to be dealt with building project. That was the thinking. I mean, I'm not married to the idea. I mean, I'm certainly, we can stay on top of it.
Is there a way to say that we go forward, like we should, meet the success that we have with is there a way to work it into the bond as we go forward, to say, hey, this is what we're gonna budget. We're gonna budget for somebody who, because I agree with you in regards to having somebody that's going to, take care of all of that, payments and everything like that to the contractors and maintain the bonds. Absolutely.
Well,
that's what districts do.
That's what originally this was Bernie's foresight, because I hadn't thought about adding anybody, but
I don't think we can use
well,
the
that's
monies
what
for
we
that.
did. That's
I don't think those funds can be used for that, Brian.
so we were thinking, well,
This is
yeah. So
building.
in lieu of something like that, because there is a
But
question
the
about how
thought
you
process was to have this person when the bond is going to be but should you budget for a position? Is that putting the
Because your
the
bond
cart
is a
before the
capital-
horse?
It's a capital expense versus an operating expense.
Right. However, is that putting the
Well-
cart before the horse when it comes before you even have it?
But we're-
$14,000 for
We're dealing with, as much as we can increase the budget, 2%.
right.
We're not gonna go beyond 2% to plan to have additional funding for
Is this-
the
is
next
this-
few
I mean,
years.
Again, when it comes to dealing with the new, with this capital project, whether it be fixing this building or building a new building, my personal position is you need to be our lead person who gets information to us. Number two is, are we talking about a secretarial position? I mean, is this,
basically.
a secretarial position is not somebody who I would authorize to deal with
No,
paying vendors and
No, that would
any
be-
of that sort of
that
thing.
would free up
That's-
Jack and myself to do those things. We're talking about more rudimentary clerical filing and
Is there anybody on staff right now
well, that's what we were
who we
looking at,
could
exactly.
pay
We were looking
on
at.
a,
Take a part-time person and use
Yeah.
their
Right,
hours.
just give them a few hours. It wouldn't, I didn't even, I mean, this was a number we I mean, it wouldn't even be that, we just need, probably a few hours a week.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking at this point.
but to, not at $14,000.
No, I mean, this has gotten scaled down from a full-time to a part-time which is fine. I mean, we're not sure exactly, what it's gonna take. I mean, I'm thinking, just bare bones, I'm thinking here a person that would be maybe $15 an hour, 4 hours a week or something like that. That's my,
I'm comfortable with somebody who's, very part-time
right.
to help out doing office, filing and
Right.
things
Well, it's
that
funny
need to
because-
be done, paperwork.
Right,
Nothing to do with the
right. No, this is just,
project.
Not confidentiality type stuff like
well, she's not even worried
payroll.
about
Right,
confidential,
right.
it's a, right. So, I understand. So it's a sort of a work in progress. We had Audrey and we had another person that was a
Sally.
part-time, right, Sally, and she had since had gone to another job. It comes in once every 2 weeks pretty much for 2 hours. So, we really are, and we recruited one of our circ clerks, who's now the supervisor, to help Jack with some of the stuff with the billing but that piece of the puzzle, with the actual just filing and the civil service filing and these just keeping on top of that, has fallen to me, which is fine. I mean, I can do it. I'm just wondering to do that, and then when this, when the building progress starts to ramp up a little bit, it might be
Yeah,
good to have someone
to reflect on some of the directors that Matt knows who have gone through construction projects and people, library staff in general, but particularly as the director, a few hours out of his day that a staff can take, doing more menial tasks, it's going to free him up to go to, 2 more meetings, extra hours, more meetings on top of that. As we approach November, as we approach bond referendum, he's going to be spending more than that, 10 hours or possibly more a week.
No, I totally understand, and once the dust settles and all this, then we need to take a look at staffing and what it is exactly that we need. But right now,
We're just
I'm
looking
only
for a
speaking
bridge.
for me, I don't know what the rest of you think, is a part-time person to help out with paperwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, and we can't foresee if the, at what point we're going to throw the switch and move forward with the referendum in a more full force. But it will definitely be in next fiscal year. And we're talking about if we do want to hit the fall for a referendum vote, it's going to be a good portion of that year while we're working on it.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
from now until we are either rehabbed here or moved in over there, Matt is going to be, it's going to be a 24/7 job.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what I've been watching
Either one.
some other.
For all of us, I think,
Right.
because we all want to see this be very successful, whichever we decide, whether here or over there. So, I'm perfectly comfortable with a part-time person coming and helping out with office work, to give you some breathing room and keep up with, civil service and
Right,
anything
right.
that needs to be kept up with.
Then it would be an
In terms of
in-house
billing
person.
and that kind of thing, yeah.
That we already have.
So it's not a new hire, it's
It'd just
it's
be a few more
somebody-
hours.
it would just
right,
be a
somebody
stipend
that's-
for somebody.
Right.
But I mean, essentially, because you could do the math, and we're talking, if you're talking 4 hours a week for anybody at that pay level, that's not 14K. But what we are talking about is longer term. It might be as much as 14K for the fiscal year. And then if we need to revisit it after January, because we actually see that there's more to it, we can worry about
More hours.
revisiting that, spiking it up. But I mean, basically working it in, the option is there, and we are talking about the balance, $14,000 versus still reserve appropriation, $12,000. So that is the wash right there. We're talking about spending an extra $12,000, $13,000 out of the reserve appropriation, out of the reserve fund for
Right.
factoring in another part-time position.
And that's if all the other lines were on exactly, and there's a good chance that we could run like we've run the last few years, where some of the other lines we know with a pretty good certainty will probably be under budget.
Yeah.
So-
Now, what else we did add is
That 34 includes that 14, Bernie, is that what we did?
yes,
Mhm.
yeah. And then the other spike also is professional services has been increased.
I'm
Partly
sorry?
for the audit.
10,000 for the audit that we
Mhm.
expect to start this year or that year, as well as another $8,000 in miscellany in terms
Legal
of,
fees.
which is probably very low for
Right.
what we're looking to accomplish.
Right.
I'm not
But-
sure offhand.
But
No.
it's keeping in line with the
Oh, the
same.
retirement bill?
Yeah, retirement.
for next year.
You know, and the thing is, we
Down
don't,
again.
we can,
Yeah.
we don't want to push the 2% because that's what's in everybody's mind. But we certainly can. There are libraries that, if the timing is right, push it more than that, push it 4, push it 5%.
Well, if we get a bond referendum approved for a new library, the operating budget for that year is gonna have to go up more than 2%.
Yes,
There's no way we can,
yes.
it would be, ironic if they approve a new library, but they vote down our increased operating budget. We'd be on austerity in a new library.
Mm-hmm.
Could happen.
Have any address and
Well, does professional fees can't come out of the bond referendum because they're not capital. So our
No, I think that,
they can,
yeah.
well, architectural fees, but other professional fees that we're going to incur.
architect, lawyer.
Project manager.
Yeah.
Huh?
This is
Yeah,
the,
no,
Project manager?
Or the project manager, definitely.
Yeah, the
Takes care
project
of that,
manager. Well,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So.
Well, I had mentioned, I think maybe you were out of the room, about the article I saw in the New York Times where the 2% they thought would be 1.65 or something less than 2%.
yeah.
So what happens if we find out it really can't go 2%? It's got to go less than 2%.
We can always.
approve this tonight, but how?
Well, we always.
Well, up to, is that what we're going to do?
well, we,
Is there a
No,
wording?
there's a standard resolution that we read. What happens
verbiage.
is.
That Keith reads, isn't there?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have it here, so where
And
am I?
are we going to do it this?
we can, I have both, Carol was able to pull it up. We
The-
did it
the-
last year in February, but.
The way it works is for a school district library, we need to pass a resolution with a 60% majority of the board membership, which is 5 out of 7 people. So we can pass it tonight, or we can wait until February. I mean, I think we pass it tonight and we all pass it, then it's done. If we wait until February, we'd have to. But we can also we
Isn't
don't
there
have to.
something in time, Carol? What's the timing that we need to have the budget ready to go to the public for,
I need the amount, the percentage this evening, the referendum or the resolution about exceeding the tax cap can be done this month or next month. But the 2% needs to be done this evening.
Yeah, I think the resolution probably can be done even up to the vote, but obviously the sooner the better, so it's completed.
We could do it tonight?
I think we should do it
Yeah,
tonight.
why
because
not?
we have a busy meeting next time, and then
We sure.
theoretically it's possible next time we wouldn't have 5 people for whatever reason.
Yeah, so I guess if there was the question, we can certainly, if it's as low as 1.6 or even lower, we can certainly still do 2%. We're passing a resolution saying, regardless of what it is, we are okay with going over it. We could go over it to any amount. We felt like it,
Well,
but yeah. So we're sticking to 2%,
very
which is just a
But
slight.
if it's going to be 1.65, then we're going to have to cut.
No, we
No.
keep it at 2% because we're passing a resolution saying we're doing 2%. That we can go over whatever the cap is. It's yeah, and I'm going to be going to the
Yeah, I'm just
resolution on
afraid
Thursday.
If
So
they say it's 1.65 and we do 2, we've got to get 60%
no,
of the voters.
No, schools have to,
no.
schools have to.
Schools-
Libraries, it's just 60% of the trustees. The way it works.
and then
Schools
and then a
would be
50% plus
60.
1 of the voters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little confusing.
so is there a resolution?
There is.
This is for the amount. This is for the amount.
Yeah, that's the 2% increase for the levy,
Okay.
and that beneath it is the override resolution. You changed the dates, you updated it, so, okay.
Do we need to have a motion to accept?
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to read it before I started reading. Out loud. Okay.
Can I just ask one more question before resolution? So if we're looking, I'm just back at this $14,000 because I just need to know. If we're looking at somebody part-time, right? At 4 hours, we're looking at about $5,000. Does that $10,000 need to be in there? Additional $10,000 need to be in there?
Well, I think what they're anticipating is if we move into this year and we start hitting lots of extra work because of the new building and the things associated with it, where Matt's getting pulled away, that they can add some more hours, a little cushion to add more hours.
Okay.
I look at this and see a frugal budget. And thanks for the work you put into it. You know, it's amazing we can get through the year. It
Shoestring.
really is.
Shoestring.
So, I start with resolve.
Yeah, resolved at the budget draft.
Okay.
I mean, I'll point out too that what we're talking about is increasing the budget by roughly $26,000, 2%, and the expenses have gone up $67,000.
I know.
So, I mean, part of that is what we're not paying towards land this year over last year, but we're still tapping the reserve fund. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, Keith. No, that's from the minutes, so we would say, how would you word it,
We don't do a motion first?
Yeah, I'm trying to get
Oh,
the
okay,
verbiage.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
He
perfect.
he reads it and we go,
It's,
what he said.
Oh my God.
What he said.
To read what he says.
What do we say?
Carol, how do we start, I mean, you have it as resolved, what would you, how would we enter into that?
Respectfully request a motion.
That's what, right,
Okay.
that,
Hey. And just continue reading through this.
Yeah.
at the budget draft, right?
Respectfully request the motion that resolved
Right.
Yeah.
that the budget draft with the 2% increase be presented to the Goshen taxpayers for the operation of the Goshen Public Library and Historical Society for the fiscal year of 2015 through 2016. Motion made by Norma, seconded by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. And
And the whereas.
whereas the adoption of the 2015 through 2016 budget for the Goshen Public Library and Historical Society may require a tax levy increase that exceeds the tax cap imposed by state law as outlined in General Municipal Law Section 3-C adopted in 2011, and B, whereas General Municipal Law Section 3C expressly permits the library board to override the tax levy limit by a C resolution approved by a vote of 60% of qualified board members. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Goshen Public Library and Historical Society voted and approved to exceed the tax levy limit for 2015 through 2016 by at least the 60% of the Board of Trustees as required by state law on January 12th, 2015. And
All in favor?
all in favor?
Well, we gotta, I make the motion,
I'm sorry,
Mhm.
you didn't have
and,
that.
and someone
Bernie
else.
made the motion, seconded
I
by
have a question.
Jim. Oh,
No. Need a second first. Somebody's gotta second it.
I'll second it.
Byron.
We explain again to me why we have this resolution, because we've already approved something that is 2% increase, and now we're saying we're gonna exceed it. We
have the
might
right
exceed
to-
it. Under what conditions might we exceed it?
In case it turns out that it's 1.65.
It's 1.6 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not quite
What
2%.
the
Okay, so if it's
The-
1.6, we're still gonna go with 2. That's
Yes.
basically- Okay,
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
alright, got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. And that's it.
Thank you.
Okay. Auditor selection. Another action item.
Did it, that reminds me,
I think they were fine with all of
okay, it's up to us.
it, right?
That's probably, maybe this is something that should be done in executive session, because we're gonna be talking about. Actually,
I didn't bring the paperwork down.
you know what, yeah, let's, can we table that till next meeting, is there a rush on that, we can,
Yeah, 'cause
February? We're not gonna be here till July.
they're doing June 30th, 15th, so we're not
Yeah,
even
okay.
at the end yet, so.
Yeah, we sent the paperwork to Rob Schultz, our treasurer, to review the three. We actually ended up soliciting bids from 3 local auditors. And I'm fairly sure of the one I'd like to choose, but I just want to have a little conversation with Rob before. I haven't had the opportunity. We gave the stuff to him on late last week, and then today he was busy. So
I
Okay.
move the table. I move the table.
Second.
You all in favor of that? All in, no?
Yeah, the vote on it, the motion.
Okay.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Nothing else.
I have this
Oh,
just handed out. If anybody's interested, anybody at all is interested, and that includes any staff whom you might want
okay,
us
I'll put this on the
permit to send up there. Wednesday, February 25th is NYLA Library Advocacy Day. And in short, anybody who wants more details should go on the rcls.org website. They're generally send at least 2 buses upstate.
Did you go to one of these before?
I did. I've done it to 2
Yeah.
the past couple of years. And you go and you're an advocate for library. You're not a what's the other word that you're not?
champion.
No.
Oh, lobbyist.
You're not a lobbyist because you have to be a licensed lobbyist apparently or something. So you're an advocate for the library. You it's not laughing matter. but yeah, there is a deadline for signing up. It is a very early bus up to Albany, but you get the bus right up there, and you get to meet with the legislators up there and
They give you breakfast on the bus. Refreshments.
refreshments on the bus. And-
Wait, this is lobbying information.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. Yes, we'll talk to the powers that be about that.
It says motor coach. You said bus.
Yes, motor coach.
As opposed to a horse-drawn carriage.
But a lot of people go, and another thing too is, again, anybody who's interested, is students, high school students. Any high school students interested in politics or the workings of the Capitol?
I'll give this to Michelle too, she can pass them on.
It's good too. Sometimes poli-sci or other social studies classes will send people up there too. So
Is this something that, does RCLS contact the local high schools themselves, or is that something that we should be doing?
I'll bring it up to them at the meeting on either on Thursday or next Monday to make sure. Yeah. But I mean, there is a small fee, $12 per person. We can actually also opt to well, it used to say on here that champions, if we actually had a champion, we could send them up there. But champion is somebody who actually has basically a strong story, a touching advocacy story about the library. So, and anybody who's been to the annual breakfast has seen the champions speak at the breakfast. So they get a ride for free, but they can talk directly to the legislators as well. But anyway, that's it.
Okay, thank you. So we're gonna add the auditor selection to the next agenda. Any other additions to the agenda for February
Megan.
meeting?
Megan is,
Yep.
Megan is coming.
Right. Okay. There's no need to go into executive session
No.
tonight? Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:17? Norma made that motion, seconded by Bernie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Football.